The Honorable Wilfred Abrams, SC MP, Minister of Home Affairs and Information, Ms. Kerry Hinds, Director, Department of Emergency Management, Donelle Belgrave-Young, Assistant Manager, Insurance Operations, Underwriting and Institutional Sales, Broker Team, Sagicor, Mr. Brian Murray, Deputy Director, Barbados Meteorological Services, Mr. Jair Torres, Program Management Officer, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, members of the media, good morning. And welcome to this very important Atlantic hurricane season press conference for 2024. We would like to give special thanks to the Department of Emergency Management as well as Sagicor General for partnering with us to ensure that the message of hurricane preparedness and readiness is disseminated throughout Barbados. Our theme this year is Early Warning, Early Action Saves Lives. At this point, I would invite the Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Ms. Kerry Hinds, to give welcome remarks. Ms. Hinds.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Minister Abrams, the Honorable Minister Abrams, Minister of Home Affairs and Information, Permanent Secretary, Ms. Yvette Goddard, in the Ministry of Home Affairs and Information, Ms. Donelle Belgrave-Young, Assistant Manager, Insurance Operations with Sagicor, Dr. Jair Torres, Program Manager at the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Office, Deputy Director Robert Harewood of the Department of Emergency Management, the Department of Emergency Management staff, exhibitors, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I bid you good morning and welcome to the annual press conference that ushers in the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. As you are aware, we take this opportunity to address the public about the very important issues as it relates to preparedness and readiness for the Atlantic hurricane season, which traditionally runs from June 1st to November 30th. Today is about disseminating key messages. Messages to prompt you, if you have not done so already, to put your preparedness plans in place. Today is about saying that you need to be prepared and ready for any eventuality this season. Today is about encouraging early warning, early action, which will save lives. The DEM is pleased to usher in its month of activities with this event because we see promoting a culture of safety, a culture of preparedness and readiness of the population as essential and critical. We do this through the raising of awareness about the hazards that we face within this Caribbean region, and also about how the measures that we need to put in place to cope with these various hazards. I encourage you to listen and heed the information that the authorities will give to you. I need you to safeguard your homes, your families, and be a helping hand in the community. There are vulnerable persons among us, and they need your assistance, more so during this season. We are all in this together as we maneuver through what the pundits say may be a very active hurricane season. But as you all know, it only takes one. So thank you so very much for being here this morning at the lovely Queen's Park to be a part of as we usher in the start of our Hurricane Awareness Month and the Atlantic hurricane season. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hinds, Director, Department of Emergency Management. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Deputy Director, Mr. Robert Hayward, and of course, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ms. Goddard. Thank you so much for being here. At this point, we realize that to undertake a mammoth task like this, we need partnership, and disaster management is all about building partnerships and relationships. So at this point, I would invite some general remarks from Ms. Donelle Belgrave-Young, Assistant Manager, Insurance Operations, Underwriting, and Institutional Sales of the broker team, Sagicor. Ms. Belgrave-Young.
Thank you very much, Simon. Minister of Home Affairs and Information, the Honorable Wilfred Abrams, Program Management Officer of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Mr. Jair Torres, Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Ms. Kerry Hinds, Deputy Director of the Barbados Meteorological Services, Mr. Brian Murray, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am pleased to address you at the official start of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season, with predictions all indicating that the season could be one of the most active in recorded history. Our message to Barbadians is simple: be prepared. As a leading general insurance company, Sagicor, and a financial solution provider on the island, we are well aware of the risk that comes with disasters. We also understand the comfort that comes with people not having to worry if there's somebody else to help us pick up the pieces. As we therefore enter a season of the unknown, it is critical to recognize the importance of insurance. Mother Nature is unpredictable and can seriously disrupt our lives and by extension, our island in the twinkling of an eye. I can believe Kerry would have said that not too long ago. At Sagicor General, we are here to provide a safety net by offering financial protection during uncertain times. In the event of a hurricane or severe weather system, the damage to houses we spent years making our homes and our possessions can be catastrophic, leading to significant repair costs or even total losses. With insurance coverage, homeowners can take solace in having the necessary support to rebuild and replace what has been damaged. With homeowners' comprehensive insurance, the coverage also extends beyond property protection. It provides coverage for additional living expenses, such as temporary accommodation in the aftermath of a hurricane. This ensures that families have the resources they need to maintain a sense of normalcy during challenging times. Insurance also plays a vital role in community resilience. When people are insured, it allows the spreading of the financial risk across a broader pool of policyholders. So, essentially, insurance helps communities recover much quicker from disasters. At Sagicor General, we are more than just insurance providers. We also provide risk management services, including free, comprehensive risk surveys of our homes, of your homes and businesses, to determine where your vulnerability lies and provide solutions to reduce your risk. Let me take this opportunity to remind you that it is important to note that before the time of a hurricane or disaster, make sure your sum insured is adequate. You should review your sums insured regularly, especially if you've upgraded your home, you've made renovations, enhancements, or any additions. You should also ask us to change your sum insured on or before renewal. Barbados, as we brace ourselves for the challenges that lie ahead, let us ensure that we are prepared. Stock up on the canned goods, your water, your medication. Ensure your surroundings are free of debris, but do not forget your insurance. Together, we can weather the storm and emerge stronger than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Belgrave-Young. And it was only last month that we saw our firefighters dealing with various bushfires, and look at how everything has changed. We're getting lots of showers of rain. But you don't have to believe my analysis or forecast. We have our next person to speak. We have none other than Mr. Brian Murray, Deputy Director of the Barbados Meteorological Services, who's going to give us a brief outlook of the Atlantic hurricane season for 2024. Mr. Murray?
Thank you very much. Mr. Representative.
Yes, sir. Very close.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope that everything is well with everyone on the first day of June 2024. The Minister of Home Affairs and Information, Mr. Abrams, the Deputy Director of Department of Emergency Management, Mr. Robert Jair, the Director of Department of Emergency Management, Ms. Kerry Hinds, Ms. Donelle Belgrave-Young, Assistant Manager Insurance Operations of Team Sagicor, Jair Torres, Program Management Officer of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, also known as the UNDRR, Simone Allen, Program Officer of DEM, special invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I know that everyone is waiting with bated breath to find out what this year's predictions are going to be. But what I'm going to do first is do a quick recap of last year's hurricane season. And I can see here is that we had 20 named storms, and of those 20, 7 became hurricanes. And of those 7 hurricanes, 3 of them became major. That is, they had sustained winds of above 111 miles per hour. So you may ask, what affected us? And I think that they were still fresh in our minds. We had Tropical Storm Brett, which was on the 22nd of June 2023, and I must say it has been one of the earliest storms that we had affected us in recent years. And what was interesting that they had another storm named Cindy behind us also, which is pretty unusual in the Atlantic Ocean. Despite the fact that they had a Nino, but I think what won out here is the above normal sea surface temperatures. So we had Tropical Storm Brett, which didn't do much damage, which was very fortunate. However, then as time goes on, we had to deal with the heat, which I will discuss later. And then we had Tropical Storm Philippe on the 2nd of October 2023. Now, there is this conception that if a center of a tropical storm or hurricane passes far from Barbados, that there is nothing to worry about. But that is not the case. On that day in particular, we had severe thunderstorms, we had frequent lightning strikes, we had a situation in St. George where I live, we had a situation where we had a microburst/tornado touching down, and it caused damages to a few houses within the area. And then we had Tropical Hurricane Tammy on 21st of October 2023. And just like Philippe, even though the center was far away from the island, the feeder bands from that system created some very heavy rains, flash flooding, and severe thunderstorms. So I'm not going to go straight to this year's projections. And you all know that different entities in the United States they have their own predictions. So I'm going to start with NOAA first, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They have predicted between 17 to 25 named storms. Out of those 25 maximum named storms, 8 to 13 will become hurricanes. Out of those 8 to 13 hurricanes, there's a possibility that between 4 to 7 of those hurricanes will become major. Another entity, which is the Colorado State University, had predicted 23 named storms. Of those 23 named storms, 11 will become hurricanes and 5 will become major. And I'm going to give you the names. They are Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Debbie, Ernesto, Francine, Gordon, Helen, Isaac, Joyce, Kirk, Leslie, Milton, Nadine, Oscar, Patty, Raphael, Sarah, Tony, Valerie, and William. Please note that these names will be recycled every 6 years. A name will only be retired if it does major damages in the country or if a death occurs. So you may ask now, what are the factors contributing to a more active hurricane season? And the reason being is that we have La Nina, which is coming back, which is basically a climate pattern that describes the unusual cooling of the surface waters in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. It occurs every 2 to 7 years, and what that does is that it results in higher rainfall across Barbados, and you have the more incidents of tropical cyclones, with the hurricanes, depressions, and even the waves. We have a more incident of waves coming across the Eastern Atlantic. And there's evidence that the waters across the Eastern Pacific are already cooling, and based on our latest readings from our unmanned surface vessels in the Atlantic, the waters are still pretty warm, which is over 29 degrees Celsius. And what that means is that it'll be easier for a tropical storm or a hurricane to form. And there's also evidence that the Atlantic Ocean is warming very steadily, so there's a possibility that we'll have to deal with more hurricanes and tropical storms in years to come. It's going to be hot again? Yes. I'm sorry to say, but like last year, it's going to be hot again. And the reason being is that our climatology has indicated that last year's temperatures were above the mean. Normally, the maximum temperature around July, August, September would be around 31 degrees Celsius, but records have proven that we have gone up to at least 33, 34 degrees Celsius in some locations. So it has been very hot last year. I know that it has been very uncomfortable. And that also applies to the minimum temperatures. They have also gone up. So I think we have to brace ourselves for much warmer nights, in the years ahead. And our outlook on our Barbados climate outlook newsletter is indicating that it's going to be pretty warm from late May, all up to September. And it's going to be very uncomfortable in the urban areas in particular. Now, the thing about it is that anytime you have the winds coming from the southeast, it tends to bring out all the warm, hot, or humid air from the equator. And that is going to be a factor. So that's one thing you have to remember. But on the other hand, if the winds are coming from the east, northeast, or northeast, then it is going to be a little cooler. So usually when a tropical wave passes, you tend to get that southeasterly flow, and it's going to be pretty hot, and also have to deal with the haze too. Now, for some reminders, you must also have, an adequate water supply for each household. Stock up on perishable goods. And I know that people like to eat a lot of chicken and so on, so it is advisable not to overstock your refrigerator during the hurricane season, because you don't know what's going to happen. Because the thing is that even if you don't get a direct hit by a tropical storm or hurricane, you still have to deal with the tropical waves, and those can bring on some severe thunderstorms, and that could do some damage, just like the freak storm that we had in 2021, that's in June. You got to have, the flashlights are working, batteries, a first aid kit, for each household, you do the preparations. And before I sign off, it's not too early for a system to affect Barbados. And that's happened in 1960, 1979, 2005, 2013. And we had the situation with Elsa, and last year with Brett. And every tropical wave, cyclone, depression, tropical storm, they are not all the same. There's this concept that when you look on a satellite, there's supposed to be this symmetrical look. That don't always be the case. Every single system has its own characteristics, and they will do their own thing. So the best thing we could do is to be prepared and look out for any eventuality and any expectations that we could expect. So you may get more short intense showers like last year, isolated rapid onset events, which means that if you have a short lead time for watches and warnings, I would mention of the hot summer, probably last year, and it could possibly equal or break last year's. And each individual, family, and business shall plan accordingly for the excess heat, severe thunderstorms, and strong tropical waves, depressions, tropical storms, and hurricanes. And I wish you all the best for this hurricane season. And you can always rely on the Barbados Met Services for our timely watches and warnings, depending on the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Brian Murray, Deputy Director of the Barbados Met Services. So in a nutshell, don't overstock your fridge. Have lots of water because we have a hot summer ahead, and be prepared for the hurricane season because there are a number of named storms and so on that will be affecting Barbados. And a very important part of disaster management is early warning. And to tell us a lot more about the Global Early Warning System Initiative, we're going to invite Dr. Jair Torres, Program Management Officer, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Dr. Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Honorable Minister Abrams, thank you for the invitation to be here. Dr. Hinds, thank you so much for inviting us to be part. It's a pleasure to share this panel with also Mr. Brian Murray, the Deputy Director of the Barbados Meteorological Services, as well as with Ms. Donelle Belgrave-Young, Assistant Manager of Insurance Operations of Sagicor. It's a pleasure also to share with the private sector on this panel, and as well with Mr. Simon Alain, the Program Officer of the Department of Emergency Management. So it's a pleasure to be in this press conference, but also it's very important that we put attention about all of the elements that has been discussed today. Mr. Murray has already given a little bit of the overview about this Atlantic hurricane season for 2024, which looks to be one incredible and very active one. And this is not only because of the estimates that Dr. Murray has presented, but we know, for instance, the International Research Institute for Climate and Society has been already forecasted a 50% probability that El Niño conditions that we see in the Pacific and that affect the Atlantic as well will transition to La Niña. And these transitions, we know that provide all the conditions that are necessary to increase the cyclone activity, bringing both more destructive winds, but at the same time above normal rainfall, which can result on significant flooding. So we already see, we are expecting more winds strong, but also more flooding in the whole Caribbean region. This projection has been supported as well by the forecast products of the Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum, as well as the Colorado State University. And I already see that Dr. Murray has mentioned the number of named storms that we have foreseen. He even named one by one. And the quantity of those storms that we are expected to become hurricanes, 11. And the probability of those 11, we have the probability between 3 to 5 to become major hurricanes in these specific Atlantic hurricane seasons. And we have the expectation that at least one will really touch one of the Caribbean countries. Historically, in Barbados, we have been very fortunate. We have a memory of 1955 hurricane that really have a lot of impact on the citizens, but also in the infrastructure of the government. But at the same time, we see that our neighbor countries, for instance, Dominica, in 2017 have the severe impact of Hurricane Maria, which was very destructive in terms of life casualties, but also in the terms that how bring economy back for many years and the need to recover in a very pertinent way. In 2021, we have Hurricane Elsa, and in Hurricane Elsa, even if it didn't touch Barbados, there were a lot of storms that affected Barbados, producing a lot of damage in the country. And we see that we have a lot of roof damage to home and on businesses, on homes. Even the Queen Elizabeth Hospital suffered major elements. So why it is important to have early warning systems? The Secretary General of the United Nations has launched this initiative in line with the Target G of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, on which one Barbados is one of the countries that are following this framework. And the Secretary General realized that early warning systems is a practical measure, and a very adaptation measure that will allow us really to take action and reduce the probability really to have more casualties and economic losses, to be prepared, to really to anticipate. And I'm very happy that the slogan of this year is early warning, early action. because in a way, this is what he is trying to do. And when we are talking about early warnings, we are not talking only about the technical equipments that we have been installed in the whole Caribbean region, but also in Barbados, but we are talking first about the knowledge that we have about disaster risk, not only about the hazard itself, how the hazard will impact us, but as well how vulnerable we are in terms of our society and in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of the exposure of those assets and of those people to those specific hazards, as well on the capabilities or capacities that we have to deal with that hazard. So it's to have a better understanding of disaster risk on the country and in the region. The second element of early warning is about monitoring, forecasting, observing and forecasting those specific hazards. So if we know that we are exposed to a hazard, how we have a system that will monitor and try to understand when that hazards will really trigger impact to us. The third element is about warning dissemination. So how we can ensure all of the channels to ensure redundancy, that every single person in the Caribbean region and in Barbados can receive the warning, either if it's by TV, if it's by the radio, if it's by our telephones, or all of the channels in order to ensure the redundancy necessary for every single person to take actions at the moment that any hazard will impact us. And here we are talking about specific hazards like hurricane. And last but not least, one of the most important elements of early warnings is about our response capabilities. The response capabilities that us as individuals we need to have in order to ensure that when we receive a warning, we take early action, that we work with our community to ensure that everybody in the community, elderly, youth, people with special needs or disabilities, can really take actions. Similar, our business, how we can ensure that business take actions in order to protect their business and ensure that the economic losses will diminish, and as well our institutions. And all of these things is possible thanks to a governance component that allow us to implement those activities. And witness of the efforts that Minister Abraham, with the support of the Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Mr. Hinds, has been taking in the country in order to ensure a good early warning systems for the country. Nevertheless, of these efforts will not be enough if we don't put from our side. If as individuals we do not prepare ourselves, if we don't have our recovery plans in March, if we don't have the necessary water, the necessary elements like lanterns, lights necessary in order to try to see how we can really be prepared for all of these elements. So on that, I would like to encourage all of the Barbadians really to stay alert during the whole hurricane season. Pay attention to the channels which share authoritative information to the public, not only the rumors, but really go to see the website of the Department of Emergency Management for better information. Go and check the website of the Barbados Meteorological Service, and download the CAP application, which provides you early warning in order that you can have information on your phone. Download that application as well as the Insight application of the Barbados Meteorological Services. We really encourage households to develop hurricane preparedness plans and really to be alert, because we can have the best technological system, we can have the best technology, but if we don't put off our side, we will not be able to diminish the casualties and the damage. It's like if we have a Ferrari, but we don't know how to drive it. So the government and Wisnet has tried to put the best Ferrari for all of the Bajan people to be prepared in terms of technological aspects, but we need to play our role and ensure that we also meet the requirements that are necessary for being prepared in terms of our households, communities, business, and institutions. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Torres. I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the importance of early warning and the use of social media and apps that can give us that information. And I just at this point want to share with the public the plans that the Department of Emergency Management has for the month of June. And by being here right now in Queen's Park, we found it necessary to have our open day in the heart of Bridgetown to attract as many people as possible to understand the necessary importance of being ready, not only for hurricanes, but hazards in general. We are so grateful to partner with Sagicor General and a number of our exhibitors here. We have district emergency organizations here. We have the Barbados Light and Power, the Barbados Water Authority, We also have the Barbados Fire Service. We have the Barbados Coast Guard and others who are here to share information and to remind the public that hurricane preparedness is the responsibility of the whole society. And we also want to encourage persons to come out on Sunday, June 9th at 8:45 a.m. We will be having our annual church service for the start of the hurricane season. We always say that God is a Bajan, but we know that God has a special place for this island, and we want to give him thanks and praise. So we're going to ask everyone to join us on Sunday, June 9th at 8:45 a.m. at the St. Stephen's Anglican Church in Black Rock. So we're going once again in St. Michael, and we want people to come out to this very important church service. During the month of June, every Tuesday, we have Trivia Tuesdays across our social media platforms. We encourage persons to get online and follow dem.barbados on Instagram or Department of Emergency Management on Facebook. We post a number of questions in a quiz format, and those persons who are successful are able to win prizes, compliments our sponsors. So every Tuesday in the month of June, we'll be giving out a number of prizes for our winners, as well as the start of our poster competition. We recognize that if we want to make sure that Bajans are very informed on hazard awareness, we have to engage our young people. So we have a poster competition for the month of June. We want to encourage our school children from classes 3 and 4. All the class 3 and class 4 primary school children, you have the chance to win a number of amazing prizes, compliments our sponsors. So we have our poster competition, and of course the theme is early warning, early action saves lives. So we're asking the children, you can use your crayons, your markers, you can use paper mache, whatever you want to do. You put a lovely poster, you design it, and you submit it to the Department of Emergency Management, and we will judge which poster is regarded to be the best in capturing our message of early warning, early action saves lives. And for further information, we would ask everyone to follow us on Instagram as well as Facebook. We have a very strong social media presence because of our public awareness team. And we also want you to follow us or to at least visit our website, dem.gov.bb, for further details for the hurricane season for 2024. And at this point, we're going to invite none other than the Minister of Home Affairs and Information, the Honorable Wilfred Abrams, to give his remarks. Minister Abrams.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to address you at this press conference today at the official start of the 2024 hurricane season. I want to commend the DEM for taking the initiative of bringing this press conference to the people, putting it in a public space that people can hear, understand, while interacting and exploring a number of the features that help to get you ready for the hurricane season. So by putting it here, it's a full educational experience, especially for the children, and not just a sterile press conference. So kudos on that. I also want to acknowledge the presence of various stakeholders here today who continue to actively contribute to our hurricane readiness efforts. Proactively seeking to reduce risk and vulnerability to the hydrometeorological events which can impact lives, livelihoods, and property this hurricane season continues to be of paramount importance to the Government of Barbados and the Department of Emergency Management. For the last couple of months, the various agencies who have national responsibilities during the hurricane season have increased their preparation efforts as they seek to maintain a state of readiness for response in the event of an actual hazard impact. Agencies have been fine-tuning their plans and procedures, utilizing the opportunity of the recently concluded trade winds exercise in mid-May to validate and synchronize existing plans and procedures. You can be assured that the state is doing its job to ensure system-wide readiness. I therefore call on you, the citizens and residents of Barbados, to play your part in boosting national readiness. I encourage you to take heed of the various preparedness actions that are necessary in ensuring your safety and that of your family and community. There is a clear need for a whole of society approach to hurricane preparedness. As UN representative indicated, Dr. Torres indicated, the government and agencies can only do so much. If you, the citizen, don't assume some responsibility for yourself, it makes everybody's job a lot more difficult in the event of a disaster. The forecasters have predicted a very active hurricane season for 2024, with an estimation of 17 to 25 named storms, up to 13 hurricanes, and the probability of 4 to 7 major hurricanes to be experienced this side of the globe between June 1st and November 30th, 2024. Please note that I said November 30th, 2024. It's an inside joke. The changing climate and the climate crisis we now face as small island developing states have ushered in, on an annual basis, the rapid development and intensification of weather systems, which finds them on our doorstep. In some cases, in a few hours, everybody must call to mind the freak storm that we had a couple years ago. This has now become our new normal. Government has made significant investments at the Barbados Met Services to improve the hazard detection and monitoring capabilities and to increase their human and technical resources. The information and data generated from the BMS is translated by the DEM into key messages aimed at giving the population guidance on what they should or should not do. DEM has been working with several partners to ensure that the messaging and early warning system platforms used to communicate the warnings to the at-risk communities are fit for purpose and meet the needs of the population. In this instance, we do acknowledge and embrace wholeheartedly that early warning and early action saves lives. If I can use as an example, the Met Services did a test of our early warning systems, and we discovered that if we put out the broadcast and we activate our early warning systems, after 2 hours, less than half the population has still actually been informed. So after 2 hours of pushing out a message to warn of a disaster, only half or less than half the population is informed. Now, compare that with somebody pushing out scandal. If something very salacious goes out now, in 20 minutes, almost the whole of Barbados would know. You would see forwarded many, many times, right? And people would be responding, copying, making in their comments and everything. But we do have a difficulty in getting legitimate messaging that is of concern for the citizens of Barbados out. So in addition to our normal methods, we had to be a little bit creative, and we started being a little bit creative this year. So we're not just employing the cap, the pushing out broadcasts through radio stations and our normal media partners, but we're also engaging with social media influencers to get the messaging out. Because whether we choose to accept it or not, or officially recognize it, social media has become a media source for a lot of Barbadians. And it is not always used for good, but where we can use it for good, it will be foolish to ignore that it exists or pretend it doesn't exist. The persons that can get messages out in Barbados real quick, quicker than we as a government can legitimately do it. And we've engaged some of those persons, and we will use some of those persons in order to push the messaging out when it is critical that citizens be warned in as short a space of time as possible. We take this opportunity today to impress upon all of you who call Barbados home that developing an emergency family plan, clearing your drains, tidying around your homes and communities, reinforcing your homes, insuring your properties, knowing your closest shelter, staying informed, having an emergency to-go kit, stockpiling emergency supplies, and having contact information for the most vulnerable in your neighborhood are all part of community resilience efforts. I'm going to ask Barbadians at this point to put aside, know what are the critical things that you need if you have to be out of your home for a period of a week. What is your medication? What do you need? What hygiene supplies do you need? What toiletries do you need? Exactly how many underwear and shirts and pants do you need for a week, bearing in mind it's an emergency situation. And have it to go bag. If something happens, you can just grab that bag and head to your shelter. It may not even be before. It may be that your roof blew off during the event and you have to try to get to shelter immediately afterwards. You can grab that bag knowing that you are covered for a limited time. We keep drilling this down and saying this to people, but we've been lucky for a long time, and that luckiness has lulled us into a false sense of complacency. Following Elsa, we've had a lot more people paying attention to what the hurricane preparedness should look like, but even at Elsa, when we did the warning for the storm, and people flooded to the supermarkets, we got feedback from the supermarkets and the suppliers as to what Bajans rushed in to buy. You know what the majority of Bajans rushed in to buy? Meat. Meat. People were forming lines in the supermarket and buying up chicken and lamb and beef. A lot of it spoiled. When the clear message, the message does not change year in, year out. Stock up on the non-perishables. Have a certain amount of water per person in the house. One of the best things that I did is I bought this massive drum, and it is constantly full of water, right? I don't use it for anything. I don't go into it. I don't, whatever. Every so often, I dump out that water and fill back up the drum. I don't mean to drink that water, but when the water goes off, one of the biggest concerns you have is being able to flush a toilet or wash down something, right? Let us now understand this is our new normal. We have to be able to respond in the case of emergency. Met has advised me that they expect short notice storms similar to the freak storm to start occurring a lot more often. That storm gave us next to no time to inform people. 1 hour it was there, it was not there. The next, it was there and coming and hitting. There was no lead time. We can only warn you if we know. Met can only warn you if they know. We have made many, many enhancements to the facilities for Met and their infrastructure and their capabilities. We have the unmanned surface drones that go way out to give you as accurate and as early warning as possible. The Met services have been doing a fantastic job. I want to commend you. I want to commend your team. I want to commend Sabu Best. Met has been doing a fantastic job. We've been getting very early warning, very accurate predictions, very accurate in terms of flood warnings, flood watches, when weather's going to hit, the extent of it, and how long. I mean, they're down to predicting almost to within a minute how long the showers are going to impact us. But they can only do that if there's evidence of it. If a freak event occurs, they can only warn you when they see it, and it might be too late for you. We need to take responsibility for ourselves. So, the foregoing, what I said before, right? Let us not also omit the DEOs and business people. I want to encourage persons to join their local district emergency organizations to assist with community disaster preparedness, response, and recovery efforts. Let us not forget that hazards affect communities, and mounting a coherent, cohesive, and collective community response will go a long way in assisting the community, and by extension, the country when recovering quickly from any event. The DEOs put on a number of programs designed to get people ready to assist in the event of a disaster. They do first aid programs, they do chainsaw programs, they do recovery programs. So you hope to never have to employ those skills. But if we do, everybody wants to come out afterwards. If their neighborhood has been affected in an event, they want to help with clearing, they want to help with doing this, they want to say, give me the chainsaw, right? But quite frankly, if you do not know how to use the emergency supplies and how to have the appropriate response, putting you out there presents a danger to you and also to others around you. The DEOs know how to avoid wires, what to look for when going into an area to not put themselves at danger. Not everybody can use a chainsaw. That little girl sitting down there, she may have the best will in the world. If she came and asked me to use a chainsaw, I'd tell her no. But quite frankly, her capacity is no different from Simon's being a grown man who does not know to use a chainsaw. So put yourselves in a position to help yourself if a disaster strikes, or to help those among you in the community. Don't wait until and be well-meaning. Let us be preemptive. Let us learn the skills that we can employ in disaster. Those skills serve you well in future. So I cannot plug enough for persons to reach out to and join their DEOs. The person you may save with the skill that you know might be a member of your own family. We also encourage the business community also to be in a state of readiness by reinforcing their physical infrastructure, documenting and practicing emergency and business continuity plans, and supporting your own employees where practical in their preparedness, response, and recovery efforts. We do this every year. This is our annual message pretty much every year. Tweak slightly to accommodate things like freak storms and those developing patterns. But most of this we say to you every year. It is important to keep safe and be storm ready. It is not just for the start of the hurricane season, but for the entire duration of the hurricane season. Last year I went to somebody's house. Because when the weather is threatening, as an MP, you go around to the vulnerable in your constituency and you're checking on them and you advise them to go into shelter or whatever. We went around. And I went to somebody's house who was proud to show me at the beginning of the hurricane season that they had brought in this barrel from the States with all these tin goods, and they were ready. They were stocked and ready for the hurricane season. So I told them, I hope you're still ready. They had steadily eaten their way through everything that they brought in for the start of the hurricane season. Because as the season goes on, you don't need it as much. That was the philosophy. You don't need to stock as much water because the season coming towards an end. So, you could not do that. You had the tin stuff, the season coming towards an end, right? You don't need tin stuff. You need to be ready for the one event. The one event. We do not know when it is going to come. But your hurricane preparedness has to last you from the beginning of hurricane season exactly right the way through to the end. So I am urging Bajans, I am urging Barbadians to please get ready and stay ready for the entire season. One complication that we've had, sorry, give me a second. This is affecting the audio?
No, we still hearing you strong. We still hearing you
All right,
strong.
so let's plug through quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. An additional complication thrown into the mix is that we are staging the ICC World Cup, and that has added a level of complexity which our planning efforts have actually taken into consideration. Priority has been given to ensuring the safety and well-being of Barbadians as well as visitors to our shores during the staging of the ICC World Cup, which spans the first month of the hurricane season that is predicted to be active. Finally, I hope, the government hopes, I hope you all hope, that Barbados will not be subject to any devastating impact this season. But in the instance that we are, let us ensure that we are poised to respond and to recover. Please, let's get ready and stay ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Abrams. We would like to, at this point, to thank all of our sponsors, members of the media who are here to make this press conference possible. And we do hope that everyone in the hearing of our voices and those present will enjoy this DEM and Sagicor partnership for Hurricane Awareness Open Day right here in Queen's Park. Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank all of our sponsors and everyone going by the list. So at this point, we're going to open for a couple of questions from members of the media who would have some interest in this topic this morning.
Hi, good morning. Carville Munzi from Nation News. Two questions I'm going to ask straight away. One to the director of the DEM and one to the deputy director of the
BMS.
Meteorological Office. Firstly, I know government would have started to, I think it was last year, the year before, the hurricane straps, etc. Could you give me an idea as to how that program is going, and has that enhanced the readiness of Barbadians this hurricane season? Also to the Deputy Director, as it relates to the World Cup, I know the Minister briefly touched on it, but given the activity that we are seeing early on in the hurricane season, what are the risk levels towards the staging of the tournament, the World Cup, which has actually already started and would be right in the heart of the hurricane season?
Thanks so very much for the question. We have the hurricane, what we call the Strap-It program, and that is really about assisting persons with their homes in terms of retrofitting their homes. Over the past year, and we're into the second year now, that program has been going well. We've been able to assist, I think, Robert, over 176, almost 200 homes retrofitted with the hurricane straps. That is moving along. We've gone into a second phase, so it's not just distribution of the straps, but obviously ensuring that they are properly placed in the homes, so that persons now have retrofitted roofs, and we have essentially decreased their vulnerability in doing so. So that program, that is continuing.
I just want to say one thing, and I just want to make a clarification, because people have asked me this a number of times about this exact same thing. The hurricane straps are used to secure the rafters to the structure of the house. It is not used to secure the galvanized or anything like that. So your galvanized may blow off. But what we found in ELSA is that where the rafters or the structure of the roof remains intact, it is a lot easier to do an emergency covering of the roof with tarpaulin afterwards, or even to replace the galvanized because the structure still remains. Where your rafters and everything go along, then we have a problem. It weakens the house, we can't cover immediately, and so we had that issue. So I just want to emphasize, this is not a guarantee that nothing is going to happen to your roof, because people ask us that, can you guarantee? We cannot guarantee nothing is going to happen to your roof, but we give you the best chance of retaining some roof structure that we can do emergency covering if something happens, right? Or even actually properly, quickly replace the roof in the event that the roof is lost. If there are no rafters, nothing to secure the galvanized, then we can't help you at all, right? So I just want to manage persons' expectations as to what is actually involved in this. It is trying to give you a better chance at holding on to some of your roof.
Yes, considering the ICC worker at this time of the year, now, climatology has indicated that usually around late May into June, you get the tropical waves coming up the African coast. Normally, they'll be low latitude, usually pass around 10 to 12 degrees north, and you will get the odd one coming a little further up, again, with some showers. Now, the thing is, like with cricket, whenever there's cricket, you can expect the rain to fall. So there's got to be a plan in place for a reserve day in case the matches get washed out. Now, as far as the storms are concerned, well, there's not an immediate risk right now, but I would say further down in the season, depending on the conditions of the African coast and the sea surface temperatures, because if they are correct, then you will probably get a tropical storm developing. I know last year we had two that formed very early, in June, and that was with Tropical Storm Brett and Tropical Storm Cindy, and that was around the 18th to 24th of June. So you can expect showers with these tropical waves and possible isolated thunderstorms and sometimes gusty winds. And I hope that they have reserved days in the event that a match gets washed out.
Ryan Jokes, Barbados today. Quick question for I guess we could direct this to both the minister and also the director of the EM. Minister, you had said that you are looking to incorporate more social media influencers, returning to social media to get your message out, and it appears that the traditional messaging is not working. In a case like that, do you think that when you look at everything that you've said, that Barbadians are taking this whole messaging seriously? The whole idea of being prepared, being ready, and all that?
All right, let me start by clarifying something. Right, you suggested, I said that this whole messaging is not working. I did not say that at all. I deal with the reality of the time frames. If we want to advise you about something that is 3 days off, it's still critical that a message gets out urgently to you. But whether it gets out to you in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours, it is still timely if it's 3 days off. If we need to get messaging to you within an hour, then we have limitations as to what we can accomplish using the traditional methods. Through the cap alerts, through the other forms of messaging, we have been able to get messaging out actually quite quickly. But we are also realistic. I just don't want to send out a message and I know I've done my job because the message has gone out. I want everybody possible to receive that message if it affects everybody. To use an example, and we need to look at our protocols and how we do things. Sometimes we send an alert to a radio station to put out something. They will, when they receive it, interrupt, read it,
That's it.
and then go back to the dance hall and not hit that back again. So there must be some indication as to a red alert level, how many times you have to read it, or how many times you have to broadcast it, yellow, whatever. So we're working on that. But equally, let's be realistic. If something is coming within 2 hours that I need to get out to all of Barbados, I am not standing on ceremony and dealing with CBC and VOB and Barbados Day and Nation and whoever our legitimate media partners are. I'm not just looking to go through the flow and the digital. If that message has to be out critically to save lives, I'm going to use every avenue at my disposal. And that includes the recognition that there's some people out there who have the ear of the Barbadian public, whether for good or bad. I plan to employ them for good when it is necessary. I hope that clarifies it for you. Okay.
Are we reading the messages? Are we listening?
A lot. Elsa was a wake-up call for a lot of Barbadians. We've seen a shift in the approach since Elsa. Because Bajans then realized that something can hit us. And I think a lot of Barbadians realize, in the grand scheme of things, we were very lucky with Elsa. Elsa affected us for a little over an hour. A little over 2 hours, but with hurricane strength for how long? About half hour. It actually reached hurricane strength for half hour. So in half hour, hurricane strength and affecting us for 2 hours, that caused the damage it did. Bajans understand what happened with Bahamas with Dorian, the storm that missed us entirely. If you look at the satellite photographs with that storm and Barbados right in the middle, well, we should be wiped off the face of the map. But because of Sahara, that's all sorts of other things, it didn't affect us in any major way. It went on to Bahamas and devastated it parked over Bahamas for 2 days. Barbadians have heeded the reality. The Prime Minister is a global figure recognized for dealing with the climate and the climate situation. Barbados now has a big voice in climate the climate financing, climate recovery financing, the Bridgetown Initiative. It has a massive voice in the global sphere, and I think the evidence is there to suggest that Barbadians are actually heeding. But whether or not you're heeding, you can only heed when it reaches you. So my point remains, I have to make sure the messaging gets to you in order for you to be able to heed it. But yes, I am comfortable that Barbadians are taking this a lot more seriously than we ever did.
Final question from me, directed to Sagicor. You mentioned about insurance and underinsurance. This is something that we have been harping on within the insurance sector for a number of years, hurricane season after hurricane season. What numbers do you have that could suggest year on year that persons are making the adjustments towards having their properties insured or brought up to the levels of insurance they ought to be?
Well, I don't have direct numbers, but I'll tell you that they're not enough. Many times that, especially during Hurricane Elsa, damage proved that persons did not really look at their sums insured. They did not, and if they did, because we do free risk assessments and we do encourage them to do valuations on their property, only about 2 or 1% of our portfolio moved with persons looking to increase those sums insured, and that was alarming. We need persons to really think about it. I personally don't want to have to deal with the call that says, but you didn't tell me to insure or increase that property. And that is what is going to scare me the most if I have to deal with that during this type of activity that we will see in 2024. So numbers are too alarming where people are not doing or are not hearing the message to increase your sum insured. Look at it, and also not just look at it, but take action to come in and have those sum insureds increase.
If by way of helping people, can you please explain the fact that if you underinsure, although the level of the damage might be below the total level of the coverage, is prorated? So I don't think people get that. People figure if my property is worth $500,000 and I insure it for $100,000, if I sustain $100,000 in damage, I'm going to get paid out for that, as opposed to it being 1/5 of 100. If you can explain that, please.
Sure, no problem. And the language do get a little technical, so I think I'm going to break this down very simply then. Okay, so in terms of under insurance, we have that word floating about, but basically what that is saying, like the example given, if you insured your property for $100,000, now we're not talking about that major catastrophe where the whole house is damaged. We're talking about those incidents where the house may be partially damaged. Now with a partial damage, let's say you have sustained about $50,000 in damage. And we asked our assessors to go out there and tell us what is the real value of this property. And they said this property is actually worth $200,000. Now you can see where we have a challenge here. You've only insured for half of that amount, and the damage already is $50,000. What will happen is that we will prorate that figure, and you will not get $50,000. You may just get about $20,000 or so. Does that mean that you can start over? The answer is no. So when we talk about underinsurance, we're saying in order for you to get a full claim settlement of that $50,000, your property needs to be insured at $200,000 and not the $100,000 that you felt was sufficient at the time to insure the property. I hope that was very simple enough to hit home on what those numbers look like for damage.
Is some policy needed to maybe mandate private insurance or properties?
If there is
Some policy needed to maybe mandate private insurance.
I would suggest you don't answer that.
Yeah.
Let me.
Yes, thank you.
Colville, let's be real practical. The government be wasting time to have a policy to mandate private insurance. There's some persons in Barbados who just cannot afford it. So what we did after Elsa in having to repair homes that were uninsured, with the best will in the world, if we created a policy saying that there was mandatory private insurance, the same people would be in the exact same position. We'd be criminalizing people for things that are outside of their control. But even if you incentivize subsidy, even if you look at that, the fact remains that there will always be a segment of every country that is unable to insure their properties. That's the stark reality. So we can encourage people to, we can probably incentivize it, we can push for it, we can explain in detail the reasons for it. But for those who can't, then the government has to look at ways to try to cover them or assist them in recovery efforts. Having said that, what happened last time in Elsa is going to be difficult for government ever to undertake repairs on that scale again. So there will be those below the poverty line. There will be those below a certain minimum income that can't actually do better, and we're going to have to cover them. But where people can do better and were in a position and had the financial resources to insure their house but chose not to, then they cannot expect what happened last time to obtain again. I'm going to come back to you with more details on that, but I just want, as I said, let's manage expectations this hurricane season. If you can afford to insure your property and you do not, that risk is at you. You are not in the same boat in the eyes of the government as the person who, with the best will in the world, could not manage it and could never get it done. That is my advising persons, right? Understand, if the government did not have a policy to fix people's houses, we were faced with a situation where we could not leave Barbadians stranded. There wasn't a policy that contemplated that. It was a case where we were faced with a situation of damage that we had not contemplated, and there were people in distress, and the government had to step in at that point in time to do what it had to. But having said that, no, we are not in a crisis situation at the moment. So I'm putting people on notice that the government is not financially in a position to undertake what was undertaken last time. That was probably one of the largest social investment exercises by any government of Barbados. It cost us significantly. We were happy to do it because our people had to be protected. But say A and say B, those who can afford to insure your properties, I'm urging you to do so because it's not going to be a free-for-all if it happens again.
Thank you so much to the members of the media. It's been a really good press conference. We've had lots of presentations. I want to thank our panel of esteemed guests who were able to paint us a picture of what to expect for the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. And I want to also invite the panel to take a tour around, walk around, see the exhibitors, and interact with, of course, the children as well, because we have